Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be providing a longer-term market update for Chainlink. I'll take a look at some very key levels here on the Chainlink USD weekly chart. I'll take a look here at the Link Bitcoin ratio and discuss how this is still maintaining and holding support. And in general, I will be providing my longer-term stance and outlook on this altcoin. If you guys enjoy the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Also, by the way, I will leave a link to my Twitter page in the description below. Feel free to go ahead and check that out as well. I'm fairly active over there with crypto content. So if you've been following my Chainlink videos for any number of weeks or months now, you know my outlook is fairly straightforward and that I do see Chainlink in this very long-term range with the support right around $5.30. That is this green zone, that is the green region where we have bounced off of so far about 3 times, the first being in the May crash where we came back down, capitulated to that zone, found support, and then we later retested that right here in June. And then lastly, the retest in December on this most recent low. And then we also do have the resistance at the range highs right around $9.50. We have also seen 3 retests of this level with the rejection right here in June, another rejection in August, and then the most recent retest being in November, just before the FTX crash, coming back down to the range lows. So in general, we're really just consolidating, we're really just moving sideways, and we have been for the better part of 45 weeks now, which is a very long period of time to be consolidating, especially for an altcoin in such a tight range. For altcoin standards, this is not a lot of volatility. So my general stance is that when we do see a breakout, whether that is to the upside or to the downside, we will eventually see that volatility resume. And because I think that Bitcoin and Ethereum have bottomed, I think there's a lot of bottoming signs, and most likely we will see the majors start to trend up into, say, the next several months. My primary view and outlook on Chainlink is that we will be seeing a breakout to the upside, just because I think it will be correlated and follow the general market, which I think is positioned to do quite well. I think that it has shown those bottoming signs and most likely is coming back down to print a major higher low, especially with Bitcoin sort of retesting that breakout point at $20,000. So with the altcoins, I do think that they will more or less just follow Bitcoin and Ethereum, which again, in my mind, do look fairly bullish. So that is my reasoning and rationale why I think that the most likely scenario is going to be a breakout to the upside, in which case all of this consolidation would be looked at as a major zone of accumulation. Now, that would obviously come with the invalidation point and the risk of losing the range lows, losing the support, and starting to break down from $5.30. So if, for example, in the worst case scenario, in the most bearish scenario, if Chainlink is starting to break down here and lose the range lows, and we do see that volatility resume to the downside, this is when the bullish case is no longer in play, and this is when I would start to look for some downside levels to accumulate a little bit further down from here. Now, of course, again, I don't think this is the most likely scenario. I think that Chainlink, like many other altcoins and Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think that it has bottomed here. It has been forming this very long bottoming pattern. You can almost look to this as just a major zone of accumulation, and when we do see a breakout, which I do think will be to the upside, that's when we could really start to look to some of these upside targets, and that's when we could really start to look at some of these bullish levels. I can't be too bullish here because we don't really have a defined trend behind the market, and what we can look to is just sort of this neutral sideways period. So the bullish situation really starts to come in if we have that breakout to the upside, which again is my primary view. Whether that is in a few weeks, a few months, or even in 2024, I really don't know at this point. But when we do see a breakout, which again I do think will be to the upside on a move something like this, when we get this point, I do think that we could very quickly have moves up to this target at $13 and then eventually $20.79, just because of how inefficient some of these levels have been. You can see with the breakdown from this $13 target down to the range highs was a fairly swift move. It was only about 2 weeks to drop 30%, so there's not a whole lot of price action in this zone. Pretty inefficient for altcoin standards. So we have seen previously the moves from level to level being pretty fast paced, so it could be like that on the upside if we do get that breakout and we do see that volatility start to resume. Pretty similar thing back here all the way in 2020, where once Chainlink did start to break down from that $13 level, in the next 2 weeks, it dropped 30% back to the range highs at $9.50. So all of this is really to say that from level to level, the price moves pretty quickly. There's not a whole lot of resistance. So if Chainlink were to get that breakout, the volatility would most likely resume, and we could see those targets pretty soon after the breakout. Not something that we have to focus on yet because we're still within the range. We're still just consolidating here, but I did want to talk about that because we really don't know when this could break out to the upside. It could again be in the next week, in the next month, or even in several months from now. So with the Chainlink Bitcoin ratio, this is coming down and retesting some key levels of support. Much more interesting than the Link USD pair. And what we're looking at here is the lows right around 29,000 Satoshis. That was the support that held all the way back here in June and July of 2022. You can see multiple retests just holding this level and then continuing to push higher. And that's also where we've been holding over the last few months, going all the way back here to the first retest in January and then retesting again in February, mid-February. And so far, we're pretty much at that zone where we're getting pretty close to retesting that 29,000 Satoshi level. And this is going to be important to hold because when I'm looking out here on the weekly chart and zooming out, this is really where we need to start to hold the line, start to reverse and print a higher low. This level is going to be pretty critical just because this is the first logical level that we could look to for support for a higher low. That was again where we saw this intermediate correction reverse back here in July of 2022, and this is just naturally a key level of support and resistance. So when I zoom out here, what we want to see is a higher low so we can start to reverse and form a new uptrend, because what we don't want to see is a continuation of this dominant downtrend that LINKBit has been in against Bitcoin since August of 2020. So that would just really be a continuation of this general downward sloping trend line, rejecting off of it and then coming back down to form lower lows. That is not what we want to see because that would mean Chainlink would be greatly underperforming Bitcoin, which of course is not good because Link does take on higher risk, so that opportunity cost would be quite steep. So we don't want to see that. We do want to see instead a reversal starting to print a higher low, and then ideally we could look to a new uptrend beginning where we might look for that outperformance as investors are getting a little bit more speculative and looking for a little bit more risk and higher returns. So if we were to start to pivot off of this point, what we would then look to is a higher high, breaking back and coming back above this level right around 47,000 Satoshis, the November highs. And if that were the case, then we would really start to have the momentum and the uptrend working in our favor, where we could start to target some much steeper levels like the lower high from back here in January, the lower high from back here in May, and then eventually the all-time highs. There's a long ways to go before we can even get there, and the first step is really just reversing from here, forming a higher low, getting some demand and support at a higher valuation, and starting to have the general trend working in our favor. So I hope you guys did enjoy the content and the analysis. As always, I'll see you in the next one.